Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
This podcast is for you, so if you have a retirement question you'd like us to address, reach out to us online anytime at matsonfinancial.com. We get so many questions about retirement, but sometimes those questions do overlap. They're very similar, so I thought I would throw kind of a retirement scenario at the two of you this week based on some of those questions we hear. So we're going to start here with a hypothetical couple. I'll call them Jim and Wendy here. Jim, let's say, is in his early 60s. Wendy says she'll be 59 forever, and I totally agree with that philosophy, 59 forever. But now they wonder if they've done enough to be able to retire in just a few years. So I want to see where you would start with them based on just a few facts about where they are. So Jim owns his own business. He feels pretty confident it's worth a few $1,000,000 when he is ready to sell it. And he may have someone working for him now who could be ready to take on that business in a couple of years. Now, as a small business owner, he's put a lot of money into it himself, but he also has an IRA with $900K about and some other investments around $150,000. Now, Wendy is someone who's worked mostly part-time with the school system as she raised her kids, and she has her own retirement account of about $250,000. No pension with her school job because she was part-time, but both are curious about their Social Security numbers, but they're not really counting on it, on replacing much of their income. They're kind of realistic about that. But the first thing Jim wants to do when they finally call it quits in a couple of years is take their dream trip to Europe for a month or two. But he also worries about spending that much up front in the early years in retirement, and he's thinking he might get bored when they get back. Now, Wendy is a woman who is ready for Jim to leave the stress of the job behind as quickly as possible and says she's willing to continue working part-time for another few years to provide kind of that cash cushion if they need it early in retirement. So I'm throwing a lot at you here, but I know these things come up in some of those first meetings typically with clients. Where do you even start with a puzzle like this?
Oh, this is great.
I'm going to start with the business side of it because that's something you brought up first. And my questions to Jim, and I picture my dad sitting next to me because Dad's really the small business expert in our team here. But,
so find one of those.
Right, exactly. Have they worked on a purchase agreement? Is the person who's going to take it over, is he going to work for equity? Does Jim expect, no, I just want a cash deal because I want to invest that money? And then furthermore, how do their books and records look? Because it's not like hey, I'm ready to sell today and then you can make all this happen. Like some of those books and records and working with a CPA can take some time to develop, but that's what somebody else coming into this business is going to want to make sure, is this really a business or are you treating it like a cash account? Also, what does transitioning ownership look like? Because if Jim's, employee's been there for a while, which is great, but does he know the stuff if Jim's not there, right? Because that's then this training and education that if Jim wants to make it happen, especially if Jim's not getting a cash payment, he's going to stay there for a little bit. He has to make sure whoever's taking that over isn't going to plummet everything that he just worked for and created. So that's my business outlook.
Yeah, I think a part of that with a business too is if he's got an employee that's worked there for a couple of years, that's great. And maybe he knows everything about the business. He could take it over, and business would really go unfazed. But that employee may not be sitting on $2 million for a cash deal. And Jim may not want to pay taxes on that full $2 million if he just cashes out right now. So structuring that payment to where it's equitable for both of them, right, can create a good, meaningful income stream for Jim for maybe 10, 15 years. And it makes the pill a little easier to swallow for that said employee. And also, kind of kicks that tax burden down the road a little bit instead of just, taking a big whopping tax hit like that. So Wendy, kudos to Wendy for being able to stick it out for a couple more years, longer. She'll be 59 in 7 more years because she's already 59. Just so Jim can leave the stress behind and everything. She's worked part-time, but how dedicated is Wendy? Is Wendy willing to work a couple more hours to get healthcare, right?
That was on my list.
That's my next one is, what are we going to do about healthcare? Did Jim cover the healthcare? My thought process is likely yes. She doesn't have a pension, so she probably doesn't have that retiree healthcare, but could she work a couple more hours and qualify for that healthcare benefit until, if she's 59 now, she's still 59, but really 65, and now we don't have to worry about the healthcare piece quite as much, right? Then we've got Medicare. So the health insurance piece is a very important one to discuss and think about. Let's see here. The dream trip. this really comes with planning. If he wants to retire in 2-3 years down the road and they want to take that big dream trip, that's what we do with our clients. Is if we're kind of in that retirement red zone, let's say 2 to 3 years away, we're starting to build the coffers with that income bucket. So we've got 12 or 18 months worth of income set aside. That way, when you walk out the door, regardless of what markets look like, we're sitting in a good spot. We know we've got enough cash flow for the next 18 months. Well, let's bump that number up and pay for that vacation, or at least have that money set aside now. So if you do walk out the door and the markets are down, we don't have any of that stress. Our income is solved for, and we've also solved for that wonderful 2-month trip to Europe that we want to take.
Nice.
Also, I look at Social Security because it says, hey, they're both curious about it, but aren't counting on it replacing much of their income. Well, let's run the numbers to see.
Yeah, do we even know what those numbers are?
Right. Like they have to see that. And I wonder with Wendy's, does she have any zeros in there? Because maybe she took time if they have kids. Did she take any time off from work to caregive, part of that sandwich generation? If she does have some zeros, it might look a lot better for those another 5 to 7 years for her to work, because then we're replacing those zeros, getting those out of there.
And then when's the right time to take it, right? So does Jim take it when he retires? Does he take it at 65 Medicare? That's where we run all of those numbers and say, hey, it makes the most sense for you to, based on your income needs, your investments, let's stretch that Social Security out a little bit, because if something were to happen to you, Jim, we want to make sure that Wendy's able to get the most out of Social Security as well. Obviously, they're not planning on it, but as of right now, it is there. So we do need to plan on it, but let's also run the numbers without it as a part of the overall picture.
And then last thing that I'm thinking of here is Jim. He thinks he might get bored once they're back from this marvelous vacation. And I bet I was thinking as if the wife was saying this, but I bet he is accurate there, because he's an entrepreneur. He owns his own business. There's no way, just for like the people that we know, that he's going to be okay with just sitting at home.
Well, look at your dad.
Exactly. It is literally not possible. So I would look at Jim and say, well, what sounds good for you? Like, what do you enjoy doing if you're going to tinker with things? And how many days a week would you want to give to that? I look at a couple people that we know and some clients. Hey, one works on the golf course and mows, or one does something else. And then after he's done with his shift, he just goes golfing with his buddies.
Oh,
and he gets to have that time. And he gets a deal because he works for the golf course. And the other one is, what about a hardware shop? I know plenty of our clients, they might work for like an Ace Hardware or something else a couple times a week, because they get to be around people and socialize and get a discount for the things that they want at their house. So a lot of different things to think about with what Jim wants to do. But I definitely don't want him walking out the door thinking he's not going to do anything. He gets a job, which means income. And are we going to blow up a plan that we just, worked really hard at putting together?
Right. And that's another reason why we may want to wait a little bit on Social Security, because Jim doesn't know.
Yeah.
So if we turn it on at 62 and now Jim finds this really great part-time gig and he's making $40,000 a year part-time that he really enjoys, because maybe he's consulting the business that he sold. Well, now he's paying back penalties on that Social Security and paying taxes on it. So that wasn't the smartest decision. Plus, it's going to affect Wendy down the road. So it's really, we've got to be flexible, I guess. There's so many caveats. There's so many things that can change. At the end of the day, your retirement plan should be there to serve you. It needs to be flexible, roll with the punches that life throws us or changes that we make in life. I've got a lot more questions for Wendy and Jim. This seems like a pretty exciting plan.
Just scratching the surface, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, I do want to mention, nothing that Taylor and I just talked about had anything to do with investments or income, like actual hard dollars.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so we talk about this a lot on the show, but I think that's really important to understand. We really want to get to know the people and what does the plan mean and what are their goals. The money conversation obviously has to happen and will come, but it really doesn't matter unless we get all of this stuff right.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.